Well, I would like to argue in the coming 10 minutes that not only that there is a connection between dawah and jihad, between dawah and the terrorist activities, but also there is a connection between dawah, jihad, and the civil unrest in the Muslim and the Arab countries as we see that in the recent days. And I would like to analyze that from a point of view of a counterterrorism expert. A few weeks ago, I participated in a joint scholarly forum, an Israeli-Australian forum. And one of the scholars, Australian expert, argued that Al-Qaeda actually lost the war. 10 years after 9/11, Al-Qaeda didn't succeed, not even achieving the ultimate goal of creating a global caliphate state around the world. They didn't even succeed to achieve much lesser than that, creating local caliphate states in different countries. So no doubt that, yes, from the point of view of Al-Qaeda, there is a half glass which is empty. But I would like to argue that there is also a half glass which is full. Al-Qaeda did succeed in the last 10 years to buy hearts and minds. Much more people around the world are supporting the concepts of global and local jihad based on the ongoing propaganda, on the dawah activity, and based on what is being called the propaganda by the deed, which is classical terrorism, the terrorist attacks. Now, this process is happening all over the world, in many, many Muslim communities, Muslim states, Arab states. But it's more dangerous when it comes to the pragmatic Muslim countries, to the pragmatic Muslim and Arab states. And I would argue that the leaders of those states in the recent years have identified the problem. They have identified that more and more people are buying into those concepts of global and local jihad in their states. The local jihadi movements are getting more political power. And in order to prevent this dangerous process, they try to stop their capability to join the legitimate political processes in their countries. So in a way, although we are still talking about minorities in those countries, but those are growing minorities, those growing minorities have less and less representation, in the political arena. So there is a growing alienation between the regimes and some of those constituencies. In a way, yes, let's spell it out. There is less democracy in those moderate, pragmatic Arab and Muslim countries. Now, in light of this process, there is a confused, naive, liberal Western world who is trying to understand and comprehend those processes, which has the spearhead of United States. World leaders, among them President Obama, I would argue, see democracy or refer to democracy as a miracle solution to those problems of radicalization and terrorist activities. They do not let models, the president models of Hamas, Hezbollah, Iran, to confuse them. They turn a blind eye to the fact that when fundamentalists are winning free and democratic elections, that's the end of democracy. Because then you have one man, one vote, one time. And unfortunately, when we speak about United States, I would like to argue that this is a cultural thing. This is not just an outcome of this specific regime. It's a bipartisan concept. I would quote a sentence that Condoleezza Rice told me personally. She said, in reference to a question that I posed to her, the Sharia law governed state, ironically, doesn't have to be non-democratic government. The Sharia law state doesn't have to be non-democratic government. President Obama was saying in his inauguration speech, I don't believe that there is a contradiction between our security and our values. Excuse me, there is a contradiction, and you have to face it. Yes, you have to prefer your values, you have to protect and promote your values, but you cannot turn a blind eye to the fact that there is a contradiction between the two. It seems that the Americans doesn't understand that democracy is something which is much bigger than free elections. Democracy is based on values, on human rights, women lib, liberal concepts. This doesn't happen in one day. And when people which have been educated by the Dawah activity for so many years in believing that becoming a shaheed, a suicide attacker, is the ultimate goals of them, when they are being asked or imposed to choose and to vote, they are voting for what Coca-Cola refers as the real thing. And the real thing are the fundamentalists, the Islamists, the global and the local jihadists. The Americans doesn't understand that when fundamentalists are winning the elections, they do not promote democracy, they exterminate it. Now, one should not be surprised that this is the policy of the United States. You just need to listen to the advisor of President Obama for counterterrorism. I refer to John Brennan, which recently, a few months ago, he stated what is the policy of counterterrorism of the United States, the administration. And he said, the first sentence, terrorism is not our enemy. Excuse me, you are not the human rights advisor for the president. You are the counterterrorism advisor to the president. And you cannot say terrorism is not our enemy. Yes, I know you are playing with words. That's fine. But terrorism is your enemy. He said also that Islamists and jihadists are not our enemy. And that's even much worse argument. The American policy is creating a paradox in the Muslim world and in the Arab world. Pragmatic leaders, pro-American leaders, are losing gradually the support of their own constituency, and in some cases they are losing their standing, their political power, because they are being regarded as pro-Americans. And then they are losing the support of President Obama and the American administration because they are perceived to be non-democratic altogether. The only one who's winning are the Muslim, the Islamist movement, the local jihadist movement in those countries. And they are trying and they are aiming themselves to take over those countries either rapidly, as we saw in the case of Iran, or gradually. They have time. It can happen in stages. And it's very interesting to know that those so-called democratic revolutions doesn't happen in Syria or Iran. They do happen in those countries which are being regarded as pro-American, pragmatic states. My friends, in the last year, about a year ago, I spent my sabbatical here at Stanford. And after the speech that Obama was giving in Cairo, I was asked to comment in the San Francisco TV. So the interviewer asked me, what is the reaction in Israel, a few hours after the talk, what is the reaction in Israel to the Obama speech in Cairo? And I said, you know, in Israel, we have mixed feelings towards what Obama was saying there. He said, can you elaborate? I said, yes, it's a combination of concern and hope. Concern because we do believe that he's going in the wrong way, and this would not lead to any positive merit or outcome. But hope that maybe we are wrong, and this would lead to positive outcome, and we will be the first benefactors of that. And then he asked me, what is the reaction of the Jewish community in the Bay Area? Now I'm representing the Jewish community in the Bay Area. I said, look, I'm not a representative of those, but I'm an Israeli. So in Israeli, when you ask him a question, he answers, regardless if he knows the answer or not. I said, look, if you ask me in the Bay Area and the Jewish community, there are mixed feelings towards the speech in Cairo, a combination of hope and concern. So he was confused and he said, so what's the difference between the reaction in Israel and in the Jewish community in the Bay Area? I said, look, in Israel, we have much more concern and less hope. In the Bay Area, there is much more hope and less concern. I have to say that seeing what is happening today in our region, I have even less hope and much more concern than I used to have before. Thank you very much.